Hello, if you are watching this, and that means that you are ready for your body paragraph, or maybe you need some help with your body paragraphs because you've seen my instructions, but you either don't remember them or you just need a little bit of more support. So in your body paragraphs, what you are looking to do is you are looking to support your thesis statement or your position on your argument. So for example, if you're talking about the death penalty and you are against the death penalty, these are where you want to support that idea. If you're talking about dress code or uniform at AAE returning, then this is where, if you're against it or for it, this is where you're going to make your case to be heard to change someone's mind, to get them to consider your position. So this first part, I would like to highlight right here where it says body paragraph number 1. The first thing you have is a claim. So the claim is the first big reason, the first big example that you want to show as to why it is that your position should be listened to. So if you're talking about, let's say, celebrities and athletes deserving the money that they are making, and your claim is that they work their bodies into the ground day in and day out, that's your first claim. And then you would add the evidence to support that, some sort of a quote. So I want to point out that I have given you two options for your claim statement, and some folks are getting confused by those sentence stems that I'm offering. So it's one or the other. Notice this or term, it's not both. You don't have to write this twice. You're going to pick the one that works best for what you're trying to say. So you might lead out and use the sentence frame, one reason that the uniform policy should not return to AAE is that. And then you would add what your thoughts are. One, what's your big reason? If your first thing that you're talking about is cost, you would put the cost. The first thing you're talking about is expression, you would put self-expression. If the first thing you're talking about, whatever that first focus is in that you put in, I think that's in the green in Miss Smith's writing notebook, the light green, that's your first reason. So if you're choosing that top sentence frame or sentence stem, then you're going to delete the rest, very simply like that. You also want to delete where it says claim so that you just have the sentence frame. So it would look like one reason that the stress code should not turn to AAE, and then you would delete all these little buttons. Those are just placeholders. Is that, you want to go to the end, delete all these little periods, is that it is an added cost for families. All right, so that's the reason. Now you want to show, you want to support with your evidence. So all those facts that you found when you were digging around for evidence, this is where it might be. So if you found a quote from an article that quoted the cost of a uniform, because let's be honest, if I was wearing a uniform to work, I probably wouldn't wear it, or if I was wearing it to school, I probably wouldn't wear it out in my everyday life. Now, some of the uniform pants are black, and so some students will wear it both at school and in their own lives. But when you've got like a khaki and a button-up shirt, you're probably not wearing that. So for families, students are still going to want to have the fun clothes that they have, but then they have to buy that second set of clothes. So that's what you would show. You would maybe quote how many outfits is recommended for a family. And if there's multiple children in a family, then they're going to have several sets. People would have at least 2 sets of clothes, I would think, so that if one's in the wash, they have another one. Probably most families have more than that. And so if you found a piece of evidence, that would go here. You start off with, for example, you could also say, for instance, and then you're going to add that first quote right there. So if you found something that talked about the cost of 2 sets of uniforms, that would be a great place to put it. Now you want to have a second piece of information. For each body paragraph, you want to have 2 pieces of support to support that claim. So if you found an additional piece of information, an additional quote that addressed the idea of cost, maybe some other expert talked about the costs, maybe you went to a website that gave you a general range of costs, and then the cost of a typical outfit, and then the cost and the fact that kids are still going to want to have all the normal clothes they have. So it's really added. It's really two costs that families have. And then when you add kids to it. So if you found something like that, let's go here in this second part. Now I've put one and then the other. Now here I have given you a bank of different transition words to help indicate to your reader that this is another piece of evidence to support the topic. So we've got in addition, additionally, also, furthermore, moreover, and then despite is only if you were showing a counterclaim, you would use despite. You probably wouldn't use that in the first two body paragraphs. So you're going to choose the transition word that works for you. Let's say if you use in addition, you're going to delete all the rest of them, and then you would have that second quote here. Okay. That's all when you're doing body paragraph skeletons. That's all you're doing. This is bare bones, topic and two pieces of support. The next tutorial will talk about reporting your sources and making sure you have a transition into the source. But that's the next thing. Right now, we're just working on the basics. You're going to repeat the same process for paragraph number 2. You have a second claim. So again, you're talking about dress code at AAE. Your first one might be cost. Your second one might be the fact that there's no self-expression. There's limited self-expression. Second one might talk about mental health because students might feel uncomfortable in their uniform and they'll be forced to be in their uniform. And then you might have some quotes from some body image experts or some psychologists, and those would go into these two spaces as well. Now, once you have these claims and you have filled in the quotes, you're gonna push them all together so they look more like a paragraph and less like a list. So you simply hit backspace. Now I haven't filled in the quotes. You would hit backspace, and so it all comes together, and it looks something like this down here. Okay, so that's where it's smushed all together. This one has some quotes that go with it. It's got the transitions. So I have my claim right here. I'm going to make that yellow. And then I have my first piece of information. I'm going to make that green. And then I have my second piece of information, my second piece of evidence, and I'm going to make that a nice light blue. So I've got 3 different things going on. Now, the last part that tends to throw students off is in the body paragraph number 3. You're going to do a power move, which is where you notice a counter argument. Now, this is an argument that the opposite side would have. And so if you were talking about that celebrities and athletes deserve all the millions of dollars they get, you're gonna include what the opposition says because it makes your position stronger when you can acknowledge that there's a different side to the argument, but then you bring people back to your side. So down here where it says counter argument, and again, you're going to eliminate all the things that are in parentheses, all the stems, all the formatting that I've put in there to help you with having format. You're going to eliminate all that. So now let's talk about, now some may argue that and I'm going to shift to the death penalty in case you were doing the death penalty. Some may argue that the death penalty is a perfectly appropriate punishment for a criminal guilty of heinous crimes. And that's a great point. So you're saying, yeah, that's a good point. The opposition, they do make some great points. However, so I just said, some argue that the death penalty is a perfectly appropriate punishment for a criminal guilty of heinous crimes. And that's a great point. However, not all inmates on death row are guilty. And this would come from researching and realizing that there's been people exonerated, meaning there have been people who have been let off death row because they have been found to be innocent. Their lives would have been taken. So you would then go into the explanation, have, although this counter argument makes sense, here's the problem with it. You're overturning them. So there's only one sentence stem I am offering. And the rest of this body paragraph is bringing them back and showing them why that particular argument doesn't work. So it is important when you're doing your counter argument that you identify what someone else is saying, but then you kind of shoot it down. You show why that is not as strong of an argument, or if there's a flaw in that argument. If you're talking about celebrities making millions of dollars and you're for it because they work so hard, and someone says, oh, but there's so many poor people who are on the street. Well, that's a great argument. However, celebrities earning the money that they do is not taking away from the guy who's on the street. That guy who's on the street can get his own job or something. Whatever the argument might be, you acknowledge, great point, but, and you bring them back, and the evidence for that paragraph is countering whatever point you brought up that the opposition has. So you want to make sure that, so for in my example here, some may argue the death penalty is perfectly appropriate punishment for a criminal guilty of heinous crimes. And this is a great point. However, not all inmates on death row are guilty. And I would then talk about, and the only reason I know this is I've seen some of the research you guys have done, and I know from my own experience and from things I've seen on the news that there have been people who have been unfairly accused, who have had really terrible defense lawyers, who are on death row, who have later been found to be innocent, and so their lives would have been taken. So I would cite something like that to support my idea. If I was talking about how, some may argue that dress code helps eliminate and level bullying, and that's a great point. However, it doesn't really, and I might find some facts or statistics about how people can still bully even if there is a dress code. People can still be mean even if there is a dress code. In fact, sometimes the dress code creates a who wore it best, and one girl or boy who looks good in an outfit might be standing next to a girl or a boy who's in the same outfit and it doesn't look good on them, and now they get made fun of because their outfit doesn't quite fit their body well. So you're acknowledging the other side and you're bringing them back to your side by countering whatever it is that it's called a rebuttal, and we learn those in our terms, but you're rebutting their argument with facts that kind of disprove or take down or break down what they are saying. That's probably the most challenging paragraph. It's easy to argue for what we like. It's tough to acknowledge and redirect the person back to our point, acknowledging the other person's point and making sure that those pieces of evidence disprove or break down the belief in that bit. But you can do it. I know you can do it. I know you've been working hard. I know you've been working with Miss Smith. I know you've got the skills, and I'm here to help, and so is Miss Smith. Now, happy paragraph writing. Ask me for clarification if you need it. You've got this, and I can't wait to read your argument.